everyone. Please help me welcome Dr. Debi Silber to the Heal with Kat podcast to talk about betrayal today. Debi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. I think betrayal is a conversation that not a lot of people are having right now. And I love that you specialize in this, especially with the Post Betrayal Transformation Institute that you have. I really want to talk about why you got into this work. What is the story that drew you into something so niche like betrayal?
You don't think it was just because it was a fun topic to talk about?
I mean, I talk about family trauma and I get two reactions. People are either like, ugh, or I need that. So
Absolutely. Well, I've been in business 34 years, health, mindset, personal development. And I had a really painful betrayal from my family. And I thought I did everything I needed to do to heal from that. And then it happened a few years later. This time it was my husband. That was the deal breaker. So I got him out of the house and I'm looking at the two experiences thinking like, what's similar to these two? Of course, me, but what else? And I realized I had never taken my own needs seriously. Boundaries were always getting crossed. And usually I would go to books or courses or something to help me heal. But this was like so big that I couldn't find anything. So I don't know what was it. I was divinely guided. I was like, I have to study this at the PhD level. Not what many people would do after getting betrayed, I imagine, but that was the decision. And here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business, and I enrolled in a PhD program. And really it was just to help me heal, be there for my kids, my clients. And while I was there, I did a study betrayal. And really just to help me heal. That study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my family, my work, my life.
Wow. And what was your PhD in?
It was in transpersonal psychology.
Oh, what?
Like spiritual psychology, the psychology of transformation and human potential. So I was never one of those people who just wants to stay stuck in the past. It's like, okay, what do we do with this? What do we do? How can we take something so painful and turn it into something so transformative? That's trauma well served.
Well, can you share how the events that you went through and then going through this PhD program kind of shaped your understanding of betrayal and how it influenced your research?
Yeah. It was, at first it was survival. I mean, I just couldn't afford just to check out and put my head under the covers. I had clients, I had kids. It was game on. But I was in so much pain. I mean, anybody who goes through it, you're shocked, you're devastated, you're blindsided. So it was really to find solutions to these issues. And even the first discovery, I had been through death of a loved one. I'd actually been through disease. And I was like, betrayal feels different. And I didn't want to assume it was the same for everyone in my study. So I asked them, if you've been through other traumas besides betrayal, does it feel different for you? And unanimously, they said it's so different. And here's why. Because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally, right? So the whole self gets shattered. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. Like when you lose someone you love, and many people have, right? You grieve, you're sad, you mourn the lost. Life will never be the same, but you don't necessarily question the relationship. You don't look back and think like, what was I thinking when they were thinking this, right? You don't question your ability to trust or your sanity. With betrayal, you do. So that betrayal is a different type of trauma that needs a very different way to heal. That was the first discovery.
So it sounds like you're talking about betrayal from the perspective of somebody who's getting betrayed, but did you study about the perspective of the person who's doing the betraying?
I did as well. And it's so interesting because within the PBT Institute, we have a program for the betrayer as well. Now, clearly it wouldn't be someone who's just on to the next, no regret, no remorse, whatever. And it's so interesting. And at first I thought it's going to be really triggering for me to work with them. It's actually been so helpful because I'm hearing from them. And first of all, I want to make sure I share this for everyone who's wondering. They're thinking, was I not enough? I'm not this enough, that enough. It has nothing to do with you. Even though it happened to you, it's not about you. And I hear this over and over and over again. This was someone else's lack, scarcity, unhealed trauma, sense of entitlement, whatever it was, not excusing it for 1 second, but it has nothing to do with you. And it's interesting because when someone chooses drugs or they choose alcohol, as their way of numbing, avoiding, escaping, whatever. We were affected by it, but we don't necessarily take it personally. When they choose another, we do.
Oh, another person. Is that the biggest form of betrayal that you see?
You know, it's funny, not funny. It's interesting because originally when I was doing this study, I was like, I'm studying the betrayal of a family member, partner, or friend. Those were the topics I wanted to hit because I had been betrayed by family members and partners. And, you hear enough about friendship betrayals. But I actually had to drop the friend part because while they will infuriate us, make us crazy, make us so angry, they don't break us. Of course, we're never broken, bent like the family members and the partners. Those are the ones that seem to get us the most. And I would say the majority of betrayals that we work with within the PBT Institute and that all of our coaches are certified in and their clients that they see, it's probably relational betrayal. But having said that, very often it stems from something left unhealed that was betrayed in childhood.
I mean, you could even take that into the ancestral realm with my work in family constellation. I mean, if there's a family
Yeah.
pattern of betrayal,
Mhm.
then I want to know who betrayed who or who was betrayed in the
Yeah,
past that created this energetic and epigenetic pattern of behavior, choices, or
for
even
sure.
fears. Yeah.
Yeah.
You coined the term post betrayal syndrome to
Mhm.
describe the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms that follow betrayal. How does this syndrome differ from other trauma responses?
Yeah. It's this was the second discovery. And what we learned was there's this collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. So I coined the term post betrayal syndrome. We've had over 100,000 people take our post betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. A few things about that. The first thing is we've all been taught time heals all wounds. Well, I have the proof that when it comes to betrayal, that's not true. There's a question on the quiz that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust. My betrayal happened 40 years ago. I can still feel the hate. My betrayal happened 10 years ago. It feels like it happened yesterday. So we know we can't count on time. We can't even count on a new relationship to heal it, which a lot of people do, right? Until and unless we intentionally and deliberately heal it, it will follow us into our work, into our health, into our relationships. And every few months I pull the stats from the quiz. So I'm happy to share them if you want to hear them.
I mean, I'm really curious to know. I guess I have another question too, which is
Yeah.
how are people finding you in the Institute? Are they Googling, I've been betrayed, or are they getting referred by therapists? Like, this is a very unique
Yeah.
institute to create.
It's very much a specialty. It's people like you sharing our message, which I'm just so grateful for. And it's word of mouth too. I mean, there are a lot of therapists who realize that they're doing beautiful work, but it's actually, and you'll hear about this when I talk about the third discovery, a lot of times it's keeping people stuck in a very
Yes.
specific place. So it's really, and a lot of times, I'll just mention the word betrayal. And then there's like the light bulb that goes off where people are like, oh, I didn't realize that's what this was, but it is. So once you know it's a betrayal, it has to be healed differently. You cannot heal it. It doesn't heal if you're treating it like a different type of trauma because of the shattering of the self.
It's so true. It kind of reminds me of grief in a way where sometimes you don't know you're experiencing grief until someone
Mhm.
explains to you what grief is. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I guess this is grief or
Right?
rejection or neglect. I know for me, a long time, I had a wound around abandonment, but I never would have connected it to emotional neglect because no one ever explained to me what it was. And when I would
Yeah.
hear things about abandonment, I'm like, well, my parents and my family, they were always physically there for me. But
Yeah.
when I understood the emotional perspective of it, then I was like, oh, now I understand the wound a little bit deeper. So I do want to hear about the statistics if you want to take some time to share them.
Sure, sure. So now imagine, and I'd love to share also how it shows up in work, health, and
Yeah.
relationships too. So, but let me share these. So now imagine over 100,000 people, men, women, just about every country is represented. As much as you're going to hear the symptoms, hear these numbers too. Ready? 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. Like, think about what that would do, right? 94% deal with painful triggers. I mean, they're just debilitating. The most common physical symptoms, 71% have low energy, 68% have sleep issues, 63% have extreme fatigue. So you wake up, you're exhausted, your adrenals have tanked. 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, you can't hold food down. Later on, you may be emotionally eating, using food for comfort. 45% have a digestive issue. And that could be anything. Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea. Now think about it. What does the gut do? It absorbs, digests, and processes food. I mean, isn't a betrayal difficult to absorb, digest, and process, right? And the gut's our second brain. Mentally, 78% are overwhelmed. 68% can't focus. 62% can't concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate. You're exhausted. You have a gut issue. You still have to work. You still have to raise your kids, take care of your elderly parents, whatever you have going on. That's not even emotionally. 88% experience extreme sadness and 83% are very angry. So it's very common to bounce back and forth between those two emotions all day long. You can see how exhausting that is. I'll just read a few more. 79% are stressed. This one killed me. 84% have an inability to trust.
Oh.
Think about what an inability to trust would do when you're working, in any future relationships, right? To your own judgment. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they were afraid of being hurt again. So they put the big wall up. They're like, nope, not doing it again, right? 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how. Now, as staggering as those numbers are, they're not even, this is to me what's crazier. They're not even representative of a recent betrayal. This could be from the parent who did something awful when you were a kid. This could be from the partner who broke your heart in high school. So this person may not know, care, remember, they may not even be alive. And here we are decades later with these symptoms because it was left unhealed. The good news is you can heal from all of it.
Oh my goodness. I mean, when you really listen to those statistics and you really truly connect the emotion to what you're saying in those words, it's like 100% of those people have no fulfillment. And what do you do when you have no fulfillment or when you don't feel like you can walk out into the world and trust that you're going to be safe and all of those things that really we need, our primal needs as human beings. Hey everyone, it's Kat from the podcast with a little break in today's episode to share with you a really exciting offering I have called the Age Mapping 3-Day Mini Course. In just 3 days, we'll uncover the stories hidden in your family's past. By mapping the ages of key moments of trauma within your lineage, you'll begin to see how those moments could still be influencing your life today at those same ages. On day 1, you'll experience my powerful ancestral subconscious meditation. On day 2, we'll dive into the age mapping exercise. And lastly, on day 3, you'll geek out with me on the topic of epigenetics, which can explain the way that trauma is passed down generation after generation. The entire workshop is only $35. Are you ready to dive into your ancestral stories and heal for good? Go to katdow.com/agemap or visit the link in the show notes below. Your transformation starts with understanding your past right now.
Of course. I mean, think about how it radically alters our lives. And, here I'm going to give you, this is an extreme example, but you'll see how it affects our entire lives. We had a woman in our program. She was in her mid 80s and she had a digestive issue for 70 plus years because of a family betrayal. She was adopted. They didn't tell her. It was like one of those 70 plus years, a gut issue, treating and managing a digestive issue. 2 weeks in our program, she healed from a 70 plus year digestive issue. That's what happens when you're dealing with the actual root cause of what's happening. You see?
Yeah.
And people walk around, they're medicating and suppressing their symptoms, but they're stuck. And you'll see it in the third discovery. There's one place in particular where people get stuck. That's where they stay. That's where they live. They're living a life of just surviving.
I feel deeply personally synonymous with the gut issue thing because I've been sharing this on the Heal with Kat podcast for the last year. I've been suffering from some severe gut issues. I got diagnosed with Epstein-Barr, Hashimoto's, and Debbie, I have done everything. Hyperbaric chamber therapy, NAD, vitamin C, red light therapy. I've done the celery juice every morning I'm gluten-free, I'm dairy-free. I have done everything. And recently I have really had a proverbial spiritual slap across the face. And also, I have to be gracious with myself, some suppressed traumas around my stomach and my personal power and my sacral chakra as well. I'm now next week I'm doing a 4-hour EMDR intensive around a certain
Mhm.
trauma that I discovered in a family constellation therapy session. And I
Yeah.
swear to God, since I made the appointment for the intensive, my brain has been bringing back memories and feelings that I haven't felt since I was a kid. And,
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, so hopefully my gut issues get better once I go into the memory and I deal with the emotional pain of the things that I experienced so that I can be free, because I cannot suffer like this anymore. So I really just feel so comforted by the words you're sharing, even though my situation, it's not purely betrayal, but it is that proof that our body keeps score.
Of course, of course. And that's the thing. And then we get so angry at ourselves and we're like, why am I struggling so
Yeah.
much? I'm doing everything. I'm paying all this money. I'm seeing all these incredible practitioners. And the truth is, it's all great, but it's not dealing with the root cause. And until and unless you do, the best you can hope for is suppressing the symptoms, right? So the good news is when you heal at the root, you're free physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, which was the third discovery. And
So
happy to
tell us
share that
about
if
these
you want.
discoveries. I'm dying to know about them.
Yeah. So the third for me was the most exciting. And what was discovered was while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, as so many people do, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean those symptoms of post betrayal syndrome that I just shared, to that completely rebuilt place called post betrayal transformation, where you've rebuilt your life and yourself, right? After betrayal, you will move through 5 proven, predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we now know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every stage. And we know what we need to do in order to move from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable.
Interesting. So is it the techniques that you're using that make it predictable? What makes it so predictable?
And I'm happy to share the stages. You will know, everybody will know exactly where they are
Yeah.
when I share them. It's a combination of, betrayal affects everything, the body, the mind, the heart, right? The nervous system, like everything. So all of it has to be addressed. And what many people do is they typically do a few things. They'll go to a therapist and that they're wonderful, right? But if they're not highly skilled in betrayal, it actually will root you to this one spot I mentioned before, which is stage 3. As I get to it, you'll see. Or they'll numb, avoid, distract, and then it's keeping it at bay. It may make the day a bit easier to get through. They're not healing. Or they'll join some kind of support group or something. But now they found their people. They'll actually sabotage their success because they're healing because they found their people, right? Or they're afraid to outgrow their betrayer who has no intention of changing, right? And then so they'll sabotage themselves there as well. You'll see it so clearly. Okay. So, I mean, this is all I certify our coaches in. This is all we do within the PBC Institute. I'm going to give you like the most boiled down version. So stage 1, this is actually before it happens. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, what I saw with everybody, me too, was a heavy lean on the physical and the mental thinking and doing, right? We're so good at that. And kind of neglecting or ignoring the emotional and the spiritual feeling and being. Well, if a table only has 2 legs, it's going to be easy for that table to topple over. That's not to say if you're ignoring those areas, you will be betrayed. It was just a typical profile I saw. Stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day. This is the scariest of all of the stages, and it's the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. So right here, it's like the person you trusted pulls a mask off and you're like, what? Right? You've ignited the stress response. You're now headed for every single stress related symptom, illness, condition, disease. This is where that gut issue starts right here. The mind is in a total state of chaos and overwhelm. Like you can't wrap your mind around this. This makes no sense. And your worldview has just been shattered. That's your mental model, the rules that govern you. Trust this person. This is how life works. These are the rules. And in one earth shattering moment or series of moments, everything you've been counting on is no longer real and true. The bottom has bottomed out on you and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. This is terrifying, right? But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You grab hold of anything or anyone, right? In order to stay safe and stay alive. That's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. This is the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this? Who can I trust? Here's the trap though. This is that stage I mentioned before. This is the one we get stuck in. Here's why. Once we figured out how to survive this type of experience, because survival feels so much better than the shock and trauma we just came from, we think it's good. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4, we don't know there's a stage 5. Transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we're like, all right, I better find a way to make this work. So we think this is it. And 4 things happen. The first thing is we start getting all those small self benefits. We get our story. We love our story, right? We get to be right. We get someone to blame. We get sympathy from everyone we tell our story to. And on some level, we're so miserable that feels good. So we take it. And so now we're here longer than we should be. So now the mind starts doing things like, maybe you're not that great. Maybe this, maybe that. So we plant deeper roots. And now because these are the thoughts we're starting to think, this is the energy we start putting out. Like energy attracts like energy. So now we start calling circumstances and people and even new relationships towards us to confirm, yep, this is where we belong. Right here, this is where we're going to join that support group. We found our people. This is where we're going to go to therapy. And we're going to feel heard, validated, understood week after week after week after week, gluing ourselves to stage 3. You see, Here's where we're like, I don't trust that I can ever meet anybody again. And maybe this is as good as it gets. And maybe I'm not all that. So I'm going to sabotage myself so I don't outgrow the betrayer. You see, it gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but we don't know there's anywhere else to go. Right here, we start numbing. We start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, right? So we do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, year, 10 years, 20 years. And I can see someone 20 years later and say, that emotional eating you're doing, that numbing in front of the TV, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? They look at me like I'm crazy. They'd say it happened 20 years ago. All they did was put themselves in stage 3. That makes sense?
Makes so much sense because it reminds me of that very important part on the victim journey where you have the opportunity to take that story and to create transformation and empower yourself from what happened to you rather than staying in that victim mentality for so long that it becomes a crutch that you never get to evolve and grow, which is so much of the human experience.
Of course. And that's what we do. And the longer we're there,
Yeah.
and this is also where we have repeat betrayals because when we're in stage 3, we can only access stage 3 thinking and have stage 3 relationships, right? So if nothing changes, nothing changes. So all we're doing is now having repeat betrayals, confirming in our minds, I must be this, that, the other thing because this keeps happening. What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
We want to find relief in whatever way we can. We're having all those symptoms of post betrayal syndrome that are only getting worse. So we're playing this sort of game of whack-a-mole, right? One symptom, heals, whatever, suppresses, we start tamping down another symptom. And this is the stage 3 life that we're living.
I just want to touch on something too from the ancestral perspective is that many times when we're looking at ancestral trauma, the generation that experienced a trauma that put them into survival mode is actually what we're looking for. Like we're looking for that generation that sparked this pattern of suppression, survival, lack mentality, or these fears that become so embedded in their DNA and who they are. And it's oftentimes the people that I'm seeing in my sessions are the stage 4 people who are numbing or depressed or struggling with addiction or whatever emotional pain that they're going through. When you zoom it out from the ancestral perspective, that's why I say, see how much you can find out about your family system. What happened in your family? Because we can do a few family constellations about your situation and what you know, but also let's use constellation work to understand what happened before you so that we can heal it at the root, similar to healing the gut issues at the root or anything else.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Exactly. And that's all stage 3 stuff. I remember having someone on my podcast and she was talking about, it was the mice and the cherry blossoms. Are you familiar with that study?
No.
Okay. So there was, it was a study done and I may be botching it up a little bit, but you'll get the concept of mice and they would smell a cherry blossom and get a shock, right? Well, the next generation of mice would smell a cherry blossom and panic. The generation after that would smell the cherry blossom and panic. It went 3 generations because of that. So you're absolutely right. The issues are in the tissues. I mean, it's there for sure.
Yeah.
So it was incredible. I mean, it was terrible, but
Yeah.
an incredible study, like just to see you just do something like that and look what gets wired. So it absolutely does.
Right.
But also think about it, even just from an obvious way. If this is how you're living and you're numbing, suppressing, you're living in this state of stage 3 survival. Now you have different relationships or you have kids or whatever, like what kind of life can you expect from yourself? You can only expect a stage 3 life. So people ask me all the time, what do I do about my partner or this and that? Do I stay? Do I go? And I'll say every single time, get yourself to stage 4 and 5, because then you'll see things from a very different vantage point.
Yeah.
You'll have stage 4 thoughts and do stage 4 things. Then you think stage 5 thoughts and do stage 5 things. So let me get you out of here and then okay. So if you're willingness is a big word right here. If you're willing to let go of the story, grieve, mourn the loss, bunch of things you need to do, you move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. Right there in that decision, you're turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but at least you stopped the massive damage that was going on in stages 2 and stage 3. Stage 4 feels like if you've ever moved. Like if you've ever moved to a new house, office, whatever, all your stuff's not there, it's not cozy yet, but it's this sort of hopeful excitement. But then think about it. If you were to move, you don't take everything with you. You don't take all the things that don't represent who you're now ready to become. And what I found was there's this one spot as people go from stage 3 to stage 4. If your friends weren't there for you, they don't come along. That lame support group, you're done. That therapist who's rooting you in stage 3, you're done. That betrayer who's not changing, you're done. And people say to me all the time, what the heck, is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. And if they don't rise, they don't come along. So it's not lonely. It's a very personal space right here. Anyway, when you settle into this and you make it cozy, you make it sort of mentally home, you move into the 5th most beautiful stage. This is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body is healing, self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. You couldn't do that earlier. You didn't have the bandwidth. The mind is healing. You're making all kinds of new rules, new boundaries based on who you're becoming. You have a whole new worldview based on what you see so clearly. And the 4 legs of that table, in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we are solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
That's beautiful. I love the 5 stages because once you can outline what that journey looks like, I'm sure that people start to get a glimmer of hope that they don't have to live in this betrayal, but also such a testament to like what new age healing in our world looks like. I think about maybe mental health 20, 30 years ago, looking at the physical, the spiritual, the emotional, all of the things, the mental as well. We didn't have holistic healing like that 20, 30 years ago. It's incredible. You said you've been doing this for 30 years. I'm sure that you have really seen a transformation in the mental health industry. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've been in business 30 years, but this whole betrayal thing, it was really 2016. I went into the PhD program. By 2018, the discoveries were made. And it's like, how do you go making discoveries like this and keep it to yourself? Like there were the 5 stages. And I'm like, I have a roadmap to heal from one of the most painful experiences of the humans can experience. Like, how do you keep that to yourself? So I put it in a program and it blew up. And then everyone wanted access, and wanted to teach the 5 stages. And I was, well, how do I do this? So I created our certification program, and then that went well. And I was like, wait a second. I did the research. I know what works. What would happen if I put everything under one roof? That's the PBT Institute. So it's really been fully online since 2018, and our coaches are just loving it, because whether you're a business coach, let's say your client, lost their confidence, you're doing all the most amazing mindset strategies, this and that. It has nothing to do with that, right? Or a health coach, as I mentioned, like digestive issues, right? Just you're giving your client the best advice ever, but if at the root of it is an unhealed betrayal, you're only going to get so far. So whatever type of coach or practitioner, this is just such a tool in your toolkit. So
yeah,
that's really what we using it for.
I mean, I can imagine just for myself, understanding. I never really before this conversation put two and two together that betrayal is actually a huge ancestral pattern that I don't name as betrayal. I name it as other things or describe it as other things, but it really is betrayal. And it makes me think of this fundamental teaching we have in family constellation therapy around victim and perpetrator energy. And it reminds me
Mm-hmm.
of stage 3 and how you were talking about what happens when we stay in stage 3, that many times that people are victims of traumas or hate crimes or certain experiences. They will remain being victim, but what happens is that they also take on the role of perpetrator because they have to do something with that pain. And oftentimes it gets projected onto other people or onto themselves. They perpetrate themselves or they perpetrate others in order to find balance or make something right about what they went through. So there's just so many interesting and complex dynamics within betrayal, survival, the victim energy and perpetrator energy, where many times we will blame others for what happened to us, but we won't understand how we're also doing that to other people or doing that to ourselves and how that can keep us stuck too.
It's such a great point. And first of all, let me just close the loop on my story. Healing and rebuilding is always a choice, whether you rebuild yourself and move along, like you moved to stage 5 and move along. And that's what I did with my family. They were deeply stuck in stage 3. It wasn't an option to rebuild with them. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something from the ground up new, entirely new with the person who hurt you. And that's, as two totally transformed people, that's what I did with my husband. Not long ago, we married each other again. New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids as our bridal party. Betrayal will show you who someone truly is. It can also wake them up to who they temporarily became. Not that you need to do something with it, but there's tremendous opportunity if you choose to. But what so many people are so afraid of is that death and destruction of the old. That's the only way you birth the new, whether it's just a new you or a new opportunity for a new collective you. Bitterness is huge. I mean, think about it. You were duped, you were blindsided, you were betrayed, you trusted fully and completely.
Yeah.
But hanging on to that is one of the most destructive emotions you can have. Like the PBT Institute, we founded National Forgiveness Day. It's for a reason. I mean, it's so freeing, having nothing to do with the other person. It's completely for your own self and for your own, for your own benefit.
Yeah.
But the idea is you staying stuck in whatever trauma. It's like that saying, drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. That does nothing. But since I know you keep touching on the spiritual, there's a huge spiritual component to healing, whether that's the spiritual side of your religion, whether we had people who just abandoned religion completely and just moved towards spirituality. And I was so fascinated by it. And it was really for 2 reasons. It was one, you feel so disconnected, from everything and everyone. So you feel like I need to be connected to something, someone. And then the other part of it is that trust has been totally and completely shattered.
Yeah.
So then you sort of feel like, okay, let me trust in something other than me. And this was the case with me too. I was absolutely blindsided, all of it. So I went to a spiritual counselor. We've since become dear friends. And because I just wanted, like, what's the reason for this? I mean, come on now, And I walk into the office. I didn't even sit down. She starts laughing at me. I'm like, why are you laughing? She goes, oh, how you two planned this. I'm like, what? She goes, oh, he needed something so catastrophic to crash and burn so he can become the husband, father, friend that he's truly supposed to be. You needed to crash and burn so you can heal and teach from this deep place of knowing you're going to have all these books and this big following around betrayal in this institute. And like, you're crazy.
You knew.
So,
yeah. I remember what I was going to say too. It also sparks this idea of believing in the goodness of people. Do you work with that in betrayal? That people deep down are good. They're just wounded or predisposed to certain things that are sometimes maybe they feel out of their control. I feel really challenged in sharing that often because people have been so wounded and so hurt by the people that they love. The idea of thinking that there might be goodness in those people, it really might piss some people off. But at the same time, when I think about a baby being born and the goodness in them and how untouched they've been by the world and this pureness about them, that has to be in all of us and we just get misguided. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, In our community, I'm very mindful to if I'm addressing something like that, I just want to be so super clear. That doesn't excuse it for
Right.
1 second.
Right.
It's not a mistake. Like, it's a choice. Let's be clear. It's a choice. Um, and a really painful one and a really bad one and one that is just so terribly destructive. So I'm clear on both sides, letting the betrayer know this was the most hurtful, painful choice you could have made. And there's tremendous opportunity to become someone you're proud of and clean this up. I have no idea what it's going to lead to, but at the very least, you're going to become someone you're proud of.
Mhm.
Now, for the betrayed, this is what's interesting too, because sometimes they protect the betrayer at their own expense. Like, they'll make excuses for the betrayer. Well, they went through so much trauma, or well, so did you. You didn't betray. So it's, I'm really clear to be super straight with them and let them know, okay, they need help. Certainly, that does not excuse
Mhm.
the behavior ever, not even for 1 second, ever.
I love that perspective. I share similarly, but it does make me think of that where, somehow these people, well, actually, what it makes me think of is maybe it's not always healthy to define humanity based off of one person's actions. There are good people out there that exist. This person just happened to be really struggling and chose to make certain choices that affected your life and the life of others that are not excusable, but, it doesn't mean everyone's a horrible person.
It's also, this was personally with me, I struggled. I'm like, how in the world can I marry my husband again? Like, I'm a highly sensitive empath with integrity as my top value. There's no place in there that betrayal works in any way. For me, I've lived an entire life with an understanding of, if it's going to hurt, don't do it, thinking that that's how everybody else lives. And I'm always shocked and amazed that that's not the case. Like, I'm the one walking the bug outside. That's me. So it was such a hard thing for me to be like, can people really, really change? Is that possible?
Mhm.
But I did it myself. I mean, that's what stage 4 and stage 5 brings you. I'm like, I'm totally different. Why is it that I'm able to be so totally different after my life crashed and burned and he's not,
Yeah.
right? Why couldn't that be the case too? And you don't even necessarily see it in the big things. You see it in the little things.
Mhm.
But if that person, their life has been cracked wide open, again, there's tremendous opportunity for them to truly become incredible people.
Yeah. Yeah. Our pain does a really good job of protecting us from looking at the pain within.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if we use it to our advantage, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what growth really is. You established National Forgiveness Day on September 1st, which I love so much. We haven't really touched specifically on forgiveness. I feel like we've talked around it. What role does forgiveness play in the healing process? And what is your take on how people can move towards or into forgiveness given the fact that they've been betrayed, no matter what the spectrum of betrayal is?
Yeah. Well, first of all, forgiveness, like I said, has nothing to do with the other person. What it's doing is it's releasing the power the pain has over you. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're a sucker. It doesn't mean you're setting yourself up for it to happen again. It means you value yourself enough to not carry that pain. That's it. That's what it means. Now, when I say forgiveness, I'm also talking about forgiving yourself. Now, everybody's like, what did I do? Why do I have to forgive myself? Well, maybe you were taking it personally. Maybe you were hard on yourself. Maybe you were speaking negatively to yourself. Maybe you weren't your own best friend. Like, the idea is, after betrayal, you have an opportunity to rebuild something yourself, a new relationship, but never just, like, unintentionally. You want to look at there's a saying I've been saying in my 34 years of business. It holds true for just about every topic. Hard now, easy later. Easy now, hard later. Take your pick. It's going to be one of those two. When it comes to healing from betrayal, it is all about hard now, easy later. And what that means is, when I say hard now, I'm talking about when a thought comes in your head, you assess it. You say, did the old me do that? Does it still make sense? Because if not, I'm not taking it with me.
Mhm.
And you're building a new version of yourself. Like, I'm going to give you a silly little example so you see it in practice. I was always so hard on myself, and I call myself names, and I was so mean, right? And then I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. So after my betrayal, I'm like, I'm building myself all new, I'm not doing that. So like, for example, I get lost wherever I go. I just do, right? It's just part of what I do. And I would criticize myself and make all kinds of names. And instead of just learning, leave earlier, whatever, I call myself names. And then I decided after betrayal, no, I'm not doing that anymore. Everything I do that I would have called myself names for in the past, now it's simply adorable. It's just adorable. And everyone has to go along with it too. So, but the whole idea is it's like a silly example, but you get to recreate, like, I don't want to be like that anymore. If I wouldn't say that to a friend, why am I saying that to myself?
Yeah.
You see? So the stage 4 and stage 5 version of you take all the parts you love, you leave behind anything that no longer serves.
And do we get to honor and remember what happened to us in the past, but doesn't create our story anymore?
It's you reflect and you honor, and it's through the lens of love and compassion. It's never through, giving yourself a hard time. And how did I not know? And how did I not see? Well, maybe you weren't supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you were giving that person the same regard and respect that you were having for the relationship. So you didn't know how to think like a betrayer. So why are you getting angry at yourself for it? You know now, you see, through love.
They love. That's the only way, but not making excuses, which is it's like, I feel like living in 2025, I've never felt more in my life that we all need to be in this idea of the multiplicity of truths, that many things can be true at the same time. That's emotional maturity. This black and white thinking. Dr. Gabor Mate says that it's the survival brain's way of making sense of our world, because these traumatic things happen to us as children. We have to categorize our lives and experiences or people to make sense of it and create order in the chaos. And I just think that we, as a collective world, like, we are being challenged to move beyond that and to see that, like, many things are true at the same time, and it's okay for it to feel that complicated, but there is a way forward.
I love that. And it is complicated. And I like to look at it, reframe it as like, you've been initiated. You have now been given one of the hardest hits you can imagine, because there's a version of you so strong, so healthy, so whole, so beautiful, so confident on the other end of your trauma. And you wouldn't have the incentive or motivation to figure that out if you weren't in such deep.
Yes. Just, I could go off. I'm actually going to ask a whole totally opposite question that I want to take us back to you studying transpersonal psychology, because I didn't know what that was. And I told you before we started recording, this podcast is the intersection between psychology and spirituality. And then here you are studying this PhD. What was the most transformative thing that you have taken away from your time in your PhD that you've learned?
Yeah, it was such a mind-blowing experience. I was, I gave this speech at my PhD commencement, and here I am giving a speech. I'm like, how did I went back at 50. Like, I don't know how to think this way, write these papers, any of it. And I'll never forget just the whole experience, and even deciding on this topic. And it was so hard, because you really, when you're doing a dissertation, you need to love that topic, because you are going to be spending hundreds of hours with it. Right. And I remember one of my professors saying, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And that was like the most annoying thing I could have heard, right? Like, this whole thing is uncomfortable. How am I supposed to, get comfortable with it? And he's like, and he was just so calm about, you're going to find everything you need through this. You just will. And I'll never forget a moment. There was a specific moment going through the study, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to heal from this, but if I can, I'm taking everybody with me.
Yeah.
That was it. I just knew.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
love
know.
that. Where'd you do your PhD?
It was Sophia University. And it was funny. Was last year, ITP, it used to be called, just last year, they had like an alumni thing, and I won like an alumni award for whatever. And it was so great, because I actually saw that professor and I thanked him. And it was such a great experience to be back there, because it changed my life. It changed my whole life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have just absolutely graced us with your wisdom and your knowledge. And aside from the statistics, just the personal experiences that you've, garnered wisdom and knowledge from and sharing it with us. I mean, this is such a wonderful topic to talk about. And I'm so grateful that you have really niched down on this, because I think especially in today's world where there's so much betrayal and so much complexity to the human experience right now, this is so, so potent and profound and magical. So thank you so much for sharing everything.
Thank you so much. It's everything you've experienced as it relates to betrayal can be healed when you move through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough.
For any of the listeners who may suspect that they're experiencing betrayal or post-betrayal syndrome or suffering from the effects of a past betrayal, what resources would you recommend to begin their healing journey?
I would say everything is at the PBT, as in Post Betrayal Transformation, thepbtinstitute.com. Whether you're a coach and you want to be certified or a program to help you, I mean, I would say 90% of our coaches are doing it for their own healing. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I want to help other people now. So it's all there.
We'll link it in the show notes below. For Debi Silber, thank you so much for being on the Heal with Kat podcast today.
Thank you.